Hello and welcome to Phoenix Cinema Podcast. I'm Chris Austin.
And I'm Luke Parker.
And this is a special episode of the podcast because we are joined by a special guest. And that guest is one of my favorite writers on film. He has a couple of film books that are already out and available, 2 film director biographies, John Mctiernan, The Rise and Fall of an Action Movie Icon, and Tony Scott, A Filmmaker on Fire. I have read both. One of them I've read twice. You can find more of his writing at Substack, an online platform in which you can subscribe to his newsletters, which get delivered right to your email inbox. And I would also highly recommend his letterboxd reviews as well, because they are just as good as any other of his written thoughts and opinions. Please welcome Larry Taylor to the Phoenix Cinema Podcast. Larry, welcome.
Well, thank you guys. I appreciate you guys having me on. And I think that's a very flattering introduction. So I appreciate that.
Thank you for joining us.
Well deserved.
Yeah,
yes,
absolutely.
Well deserved.
Yeah.
I'm
honestly, glad you read
such
it
a pleasure
twice.
to have
That's,
you.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you which one it
did you
was
read
when we
twice?
get to it. Yes.
Okay.
So, yeah, I think there's maybe a slight lag or delay here, which is why we may be overlapping. But yeah, no, I'm looking forward to getting to that when we get to it. But just to say, I mean, I'm a big fan of your writing. I'll tell you how I came across your work when we get to one of your books. But first, let's get into your background a little bit. Tell us about where you grew up and how did your movie sensibilities form? Do you have an early memory of a particular film or book or story that stood out to you?
You know, it's something I'm always thinking about because I'm always thinking about movies. Every day I wake up and at some point during the day, movies cross my mind in one way or another. And I always try and remember what is that first movie or where did it come from? You know, I grew up in Texas. My mom and dad were both hardworking and they both allowed me to see movies at an early age, I think earlier than other kids my age, because I think my mom especially kind of understood that I was looking at them differently or I was curious about them in a different way. And I obviously understood, you know, I could watch Predator when I'm 7 years old because I understand this is all fake and I'm fascinated by that part of it. No, I'm not scared by it, you know.
Yeah.
That was one of the first memories I have is probably Predator at home. But I think the one that sticks in my head, which is the same year, was Harry and the Hendersons, random movie. But I remember being in the theater and just being totally pulled into this movie. You know, I was, again, 7 years old. And I'm just engrossed by this. It's so fascinating to me and how it works and how Harry, the big Sasquatch, looked. And John Lithgow's performance, I thought, was really wonderful. You know, and I'm really into it. But that's like the first one that I always go back to. Is like I remember going and sitting in the theater, and I remember watching that movie. And so from there, it was off. It was whatever I saw. I wanted to see something like that, or the sequel to it, or you know, if it was a movie like Predator. I knew when Die Hard came out, that was the same guy. And so that's what got my interest there. And, you know, Die Hard's formative as well. All those 80s action movies were front and center for me. So
nice. Something I'm really curious about is, you know, you described yourself as like a self-made film historian. And at what point do you decide that you want to take that step and you want to start doing that type of work? Because, you know, there's cinephiles all over the world. Everyone loves movies to an extent. And what made you decide to make that jump into film, writing about film, basically?
Well, I was home. I had been out of college for a few years, got married, had kids. I was home with the kids when they were very young, watching my daughter at home. And I had time, basically. My wife was working. She works for a corporate business. And she was working all day. And so I was watching the kids and plenty of nap time in that era, in that range. And I spent that downtime all day reading. I started reading a lot more. You know, I would watch movies all the time. I'd watch them, commentary, behind the scenes and that. But I started finding movie books and I started reading movie books and trying to like absorb as much of that as I could. There's one that escapes me now. What's the one, the 70s book, the big Easy Riders and Raging Bulls? That was one of the first books that really, I was like, wow, you can write about these things in great detail. So it just kind of opened up a whole other avenue for me, reading about film and then reading Ebert's great movies, books, and just kind of expanding and reading more and more film history. The more I could get my hands on, the more I could learn about. And then I found an opportunity. I was looking online and I saw, gosh, there's no books about John Mctiernan, such a fascinating character, beyond his filmmaking. And I couldn't believe it. And so I just decided I would start researching and calling people and doing legwork online and whatever you want to do, whatever you want to call it, to get that book written. So that was really, it was 2016, 2017 is really when I started to like educate myself further on film history and whatnot.
Who was your testing pool? As you know, was it your wife? Was it friends of yours? Because when did you discover that you had a talent for writing actual coherent sentences, where you realized, oh, I can actually write and communicate an idea?
Well, right. That's very crucial. That's an important element for sure. Well, that was my major in college. My major in college was English composition with a focus on composition. And so that's what I teach now as well, is in reading and writing. And, I dabbled in fiction a little bit. It was okay. My professor said it was fine, but it wasn't really something I was as interested in. I wanted to kind of like tie these two things together, these two parts of my life together, the reading and the writing and film. And I feel much more secure in that because I feel like I have a good grasp on what makes movies work and what makes movies not work. So I had that background in place already. I was just trying to find the right avenue to get that out.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And
nice.
You decided... Sorry, go for it, Luke.
No, so I just wanted to maybe ask a bit more about like what actually was the writing and research process like for these books, especially your writing on Tony Scott and John McTiernan. Because, I'm always impressed reading these chunky non-fiction studies on just like the amount of work that goes into them and like what actually kind of sources we're using, etc.
I was using any and all available sources to me, and I actually at one point was in conversation with McTiernan's wife.
Oh wow!
But I was this close to an interview, but for whatever reason, I think he got cold feet. He's obviously got a checkered past with Hollywood, and I don't know how willing he would have been to really open up about it.
And he seems like
beyond
a character.
that, it was just, yeah, he is. He's a classically educated guy, but he's very rugged and very, paranoid by the end. But we'll get there, I guess. But any and all research, fortunately, both of those guys, both McTiernan and Scott, were big, when their movies were coming out on DVD, this was like the director commentary era. And so a lot of those movies, especially with Scott had passed away already, it's like a free interview about every movie that you're doing. You put the movie on, you put the commentary on, and you just listen and you pick up on, oh wow, they did this here and this and that, and it's a good way to get their insight without having to talk to them or not having the ability to talk to them. So any behind the scenes, and then I just started finding wormholes of research, LA Times articles from the late 90s, early 90s, archives. Really what I would do, especially with the format of these books, is I would do a little bit of the biographical information, but then this week is Predator Week. This week is the Thomas Crown Affair Week. And so I would dedicate maybe an entire week to doing all the research I could, taking all the notes I could, and then just sort of like trying to format it in a way that's still telling a story, that it's not too clinical. And so that was kind of the goal, is to just get any and all information and try and double check as much as I could. Okay, this article says this. Can I find something else to back up that source? I wanted to be as thorough and as honest, but as factual as I could be. And so once I got to the end, I felt like I'd had everything covered as much as I could. Now with the Scott book, I was able to get several interviews. I had more luck there because I think people were more willing to talk about Tony Scott.
Oh, interesting.
And talk about working with Tony Scott. They were very eager. I had 4 or 5 different interviews in that book. I can't remember who all. Bruce McGill, one. That's the big one I remember. It was exciting. But just dig in is the only thing I did. I dug in as far as I could and found everything I could. And some of it went in and some of it wasn't very useful. So I had to find that balance.
Do you have a favorite Mctiernan movie?
Gosh, it always goes to Die Hard, right? Die Hard is me and my dad. That's my dad would watch movies with me. He wasn't like as obsessively watching. He was a hard worker, like I said, and so he was gone 7 to 7 every day. But he would get home sometimes, and my mom and him, they would watch the movie. They would have gone to the theater and seen it or whatever. And so my mom would be like, all right, we're renting this movie. We're in Die Hard now. And I would sit in there, and I remember distinct memories sitting in the living room watching Die Hard with my dad. Just one of those formative things, and so it almost, Die Hard's like in its own thing, right? It's in its own category. So other than Die Hard, the masterpiece of his collection. There is Predator, Hunt for Red October. All 3 of those movies were in a row. And it was just, and then he kind of
stumbled. That's insane, man.
Yeah, and then he stumbled, and then he did Medicine Man, which was a weird right turn, or a left turn, however you want to put it. And then he kind of stumbled, and he came back with Die Hard with a Vengeance and Thomas Crown Affair. I think the second best still is, it's a boring answer, but I think it's Predator. Because it's such a macho action movie that's like dismantling macho action movies at the same time. So it's really fascinating. A lot more depth there than just an alien invasion movie or an alien attack movie. Yeah.
I think it remains to this day still the best Predator. I mean, and it holds up so well.
Yeah, it's tough. I remember when I was younger loving Predator 2 for it's such a nasty and mean-spirited movie.
I've got a soft spot for Predator 2 as well, but
yeah. Well, that's Stephen Hopkins, man. He did Judgment Night. He did all these great movies at the time too. And it's fun, but it doesn't. I don't know. It doesn't happen. By the end of it, I felt a little flat at the end, more so than I remember feeling. And then the other ones are hit or miss. Predators, I guess, is okay, but I'm really interested in what's the subtitle one coming up? Badlands. Have you guys seen the preview for that? Predator Badlands?
I saw that the Predator designs got quite a bit of backlash, but I think it would be interesting.
I can see that. I can see, yeah.
But this Dan Trachtenberg has, taken this mantle and he's running with it quite well.
He does. Yeah, he does. He seems to have a good feel for the character. I enjoyed Prey. I need to rewatch Prey. I know I was that in 2020 or 2021? That was definitely something at home, but I need to go back and revisit with a little bit more of a keen eye. I sort of just let it wash over me. But the Hunters and Killers, I've watched the first 2 segments of that. It's such a cool character, and the way they came around the design is fascinating, but it's such an awesome looking character that they really could do a lot more with it. Just, there was some bad ones. The Predator, Shane Black's was, that was rough.
Right.
Predator in the Suburbs, not a fan.
Yeah. So then, so you do the book on John McTiernan. So then why Tony Scott as your follow-up?
It was, they're the 2 guys. I guess they're my 2 guys, I guess I would say. And if we're going to go to Tony Scott, it was the same thing. There was no book, and he had this really tragic end that just came out of nowhere and caught everybody off guard. He jumped off the bridge, and it was just like, what on earth? What in the world? He was right in the middle of kind of his second wave style, where he was really had a grasp on things, and so it was just a shock. And there was no literature on it. There was no backstory. Where did he come from? I mean, everybody knows Ridley. The commercial. Coming from London,
right.
Filming commercials and things. But it was interesting to dive into his history, how him and Ridley sort of worked together, and Tony was in Ridley's student film and back and forth. And he's one of my guys. If we're going to do best out of his, it would be hands down, True Romance. That was one I saw. That was
Ooh.
another. Yeah, that was that.
That's
Die
I think
Hard.
that's a
Die Hard is
controversial take.
Mctiernan, right? Yeah. Scott is, and I know it's not half and half, but I know a lot of it is due to Tarantino. But I don't think it would have worked had Tarantino directed it. I think it needed the heart. It needed the emotion. It needed the sympathy for these characters in True Romance for it to actually work, and for it to feel like something substantial and not just another violent action movie.
Yeah. Honestly, I think of True Romance as a movie of just made up of incredible set pieces of like it's knitted together by some of the greatest scenes of all time.
Yeah, it is, and the cast is incredible,
bonkers.
Every face in it is somebody. But that's definitely the one. That's definitely the one for Scott. But and there was always Last Boy Scout. There was Top Gun, of course, Beverly Hills Cop 2. But I had not explored his. I'd seen Man on Fire, but there was films like Revenge, Domino. I hadn't seen those movies when I started in on that.
Wow!
Revenge is a fascinating one.
I haven't seen it. Yeah, I haven't seen it.
it's. And I can't remember the way this works, but there's a director's cut, and then there's the theatrical cut, and I think the director's cut is actually shorter, because it's a mean, nasty movie. It's got a mean spirit, which is kind of like
Costner?
What he would. It's Costner, yeah, it's Costner. It's what he would do. It's what Scott would do. He would, he got the success. He did The Hunger, but then he got the big hit with Top Gun, and another big hit, and then he started to do this pattern where it was like, all right, I made you guys some money. Now give me money and let me make what I want to make, and that would be Revenge, and. The thing with Scott's films is that I feel like it takes years upon years for them to really latch onto the public or appreciate. I think that sped up once his death happened. I think people started to reevaluate him a little bit quicker. But it's taken, like Man on Fire, for example. That was when it came out. Everybody was like, what is this? What is this? Headache inducing. It's manic. It's chaos. But now I think that's
the editing is crazy.
Yeah. And now he was sort of ahead of the game, because now a lot of movies are edited in such frantic ways that it doesn't really jar you the way it did back in 2004. And you were able to really latch onto what I think he enjoyed most about it was Denzel's performance and his relationship with Dakota Fanning, and the human side of it. And so that's what he was able to bring to all these big macho action movies. For the most part, I don't know if there's any pathos or emotion in Last Boy Scout, but that's okay. They're all
right. But I still love it. Yeah,
it's wonderful.
I mean, we recently watched Crimson Tide in our film club, and that movie continues to slap.
It is so. It's fucking amazing, man. I love it. And that's another thing with Tarantino Scott relationship, because obviously he came in and rewrote a couple of different scenes and stuff. But that's great, because that's sort of like a balance between. I mean, it's got action in it, but it's these performances. And I think Scott was underrated in his ability to get just these like towering performances out of people like Denzel, Gene Hackman. Especially Denzel, time and time again, when they were on their role. He's a really good actor's director, I think, or was.
So let me tell you the story about how I first came across your writing. So I was working on the West End, front of house, at a West End theatre called Phoenix Theatre, no relation to Phoenix Cinema. And across the street, there was a massive bookstore. It's still there. It's on Tottenham Court Road in London, and it's called Foyles. It's huge, one of those mega stores where it's got like all these different levels. And on double show days, I was working on the bar, and that means I would have 2 hours for my lunch, like too long. So I was like, what do I do with my time? All right, I'm going to pop into the bookstore across the street, and I'm going to browse the shelves. And one thing I learned there, which I never knew, and maybe this is true in most bookstores, is that you can take a book off the shelf, sit down and just read the fucking thing. I had no idea you could do that.
It's like it's a great hack, right? It's a great life hack.
Exactly, it's a great hack. I would have thought the staff would be like, "Excuse me, you're going to pay for that?" No. So anyway,
right.
So I'm browsing, and I'd always go to the film TV section. I'd read scripts and all of this, and they say don't judge a book by its cover, but I would, and I'd wait to see what jumps out at me from the shelf. And one day, a book did. And it was called Tony Scott, A Filmmaker on Fire, written by Larry Taylor. I loved the cover of it. There was only one copy. So I took it off the shelf and I found a stool and I sat down and I read the first chapter. I liked it. So I read the second chapter. Then I looked at my watch and I was like, shit, I have to get back to work. So I went to put the book back on the shelf and I thought, I'd like to come back and continue this. There's only one copy. So I thought I'm going to be a little cheeky and I'm going to hide it. Okay.
Very good. Good call.
So I went to a whole other section and I slid the book behind a bunch of other books. And I said, I'm coming back for you tomorrow. I did. And it was there. It was there. Nice. So that was my hack. And I'll tell you now, Larry, I read the entire book on my lunch break working at this theater. And great. I loved it. I absolutely loved it. When I was finished with it, I thought it's time for you to go back where you belong. And I put it on the shelf. Do you know, the next day I went back there and I just looked for it. It was gone.
Oh, well, that's great.
I'm happy for you. It also vindicated my decision to hide it. So I could finish it.
Right.
But yes, I loved it. And so obviously after that, I thought, what else has this Larry Taylor done? So I looked you up and saw that you had a book that you'd written previously, John Mctiernan. It wasn't available at Foyles, so I bought it on Kindle. You'd be pleased to know. Enjoyed it so much, I thought, you know what? I love this guy's writing, so I bought the Tony Scott book. So there is a happy ending to the whole conniving within Foyles. But yeah, that's how I came across your work, sir.
I appreciate that very much. That's very flattering. So I'm glad it was a good read, and I'm glad it was entertaining. I think personally, out of the two, I think I did better on the Scott book because I had the Mctiernan book under my belt, and so I had a better approach. And I think I just get stronger each time out. So
absolutely, yeah. Well, and yeah, I mean, it is fascinating, and you have this way of writing that is just one of the things. And sorry, I'm gonna pump you up a bit more here, but one of the things I love about your writing is that you're able to communicate an idea or a thought and express that thought in a written way that comes across. You're able to communicate that clearly and simply in your writing, which is not an easy thing to do. And as I've mentioned, I read a lot, and I read a lot of different writers on film. Some are good, some aren't so great, or at least they don't connect with me. You have a way of writing that connects with me. It speaks to me. And even if I don't agree with a review or an opinion you may have on any sort of movie or subject, it doesn't matter because I enjoy reading it regardless. There's another film writer, Drew McQueenie. He's a longtime writer on film. He's also now currently on Substack, who has that same quality. It's just a great writer who can communicate their thoughts and feelings on film clearly and concisely, and that's the bracket I would place you into. Also, it helps that so many of the movies that you love and speak to you are movies I fucking love also. I mean, when I see you've given The Passion of the Christ 4.5 stars on Letterboxd, which is my favorite film of all time, I know, don't tell anyone. I'm like, yeah, Larry gets it. Or you recently gave Training Day 5 stars. I was like, of course it is.
That one's, that is one that's appreciated to me. That last watch of Training Day was, I was blown away each time. That's another one. At the time, I was like, we're giving Denzel an Oscar for this movie. Ethan Hawke's nominated, which Ethan Hawke's one of my personal favorites. I thought it was great in the movie, but I'm like, wow, we're really selling this movie with the Academy Awards. And I thought it was just a fine action movie, but every time you watch it, it unfolds in a new way, and you see new things. And that's the power of a really good movie is the way it can evolve with time, and it doesn't. Even if movies are dated, the ideas are still in there somewhere, and the ideas can translate across generations, and that's what good movies are. And I think I bumped Training Day up from 4.5 to 5 the last time.
Brilliant.
And as far as the Passion of the Christ, I remember that came out. It was such a big deal over here, such a big deal. But I was in college at the time, not really interested in it for whatever reason. I was like, okay, I know the story. I've grown up in the South in America, in United States. I know all about the story of Jesus. But I finally did, and the cruelty was what I think was always like keeping me away, because I know how violent Mel can get. I actually just watched Braveheart yesterday, but I know how violent he can get, and putting those two things together, I'm like, oh, gosh, I don't know. But it was such a strange, surreal experience watching it. It's so, I mean, the violence is there and the cruelty is there, but it didn't overwhelm me in the way that I was not hoping, but the way I was like, worrying about, and I was able to really get into the story and really understand this is his perspective. It's his story. You can have all the thoughts you want about this story, but this is his version of it. And he did a fascinating job. I know he's a touchy subject these days, but I'm interested to see, this sequel, if it gets made. I don't know. It's one of those ones that's kind of floating around there. I don't know. I hope Flight Risk wasn't wasn't like a precursor to it. Like, look, I did Flight Risk. We do the sequel to this movie because Flight Risk. Oh, did you guys check that one out by any chance?
I've seen it. I actually kind of enjoyed it in a way.
I could not get it. Yeah,
I know you really. I saw that in your Letterboxd review.
I was optimistic. I think he's a good filmmaker, and I like when he gets kind of gnarly and actiony, I guess you would say. But it was just, it was missing 5 or 6 things for me. And that opening shot with the CGI cabin and the moose, I was like, oh man, we're in trouble here. We're in trouble.
What happened? Yeah, it's definitely a major switch, from what was the one he did before that? Was it the Hacksaw Ridge, was it?
Hacksaw Ridge, yeah. And I came to that one a little late too, but loved it. Yeah, I was blown away. I didn't think I would really enjoy that one as much, but I thought that was fantastic. I need to see it again. My memory's a little shaky on it, but I remember being really, really involved at the time.
That's so fascinating, yeah, because I really wasn't. I hated Hacksaw Ridge. And I don't know, maybe one day we'll get into why. Yeah, I could just keep going on on about it.
Was it the endless shots of a teary-eyed Andrew Garfield?
He's very watery. He's great at that. Yeah.
Andrew Garfield's fantastic, but these days, Film After Feel It is very watery-eyed, teary-eyed Andrew Garfield.
Puppy eyes,
He's great. He's a great crier, for sure.
Indeed, yes. Cool. Luke, do you have anything else for Larry? I'm conscious
what's next for you? So, any big projects you're working on at the moment?
Right now, I have it's a different publisher. It's Bear Manor Media. They're working on a Dirty Harry book that I just finished. Again, the first thing I do whenever I think of ideas or I try and find ideas is go and find, I do book search on Google, on Amazon, Goodreads, and to see if there's any literature or any materials, because I don't want to, I'm not going to do, hey, Martin Scorsese book, like, okay, have this blend in with the other 9 books that are out there. And so if there's one book out of print or a book from another country that's got one review, it's like, okay, there's not really this heavy circulation for this story or this whatever I'm looking at. And so that's always the starting point. And it was the same with Dirty Harry. It was there'd been a couple of books from time to time. They were out of print. One of them was written, I think, before the Deadpool came out in the 80s. And so it wasn't a complete story. So I wanted to dive in, and what I found fascinating about Dirty Harry was, like, the first one, huge controversy. He's taking the law into his own hands. It's a fascist metaphor, this and that. He's killing the killer in the first one is a disenchanted army vet and a hippie.
for lack of a better term, and he's basically killing hippies. That's what or killing a hippie. That's what he's doing in the early one, and that caused a lot of outrage. Well, the Magnum Force, the next movie, was a reaction to that. The villains in the Magnum Force are 5 motorcycle cops, so they're the fascists this time.
Yeah.
And so each one of the movies going through, one to the next, is always a reaction to both the culture at the time, as well as the previous movie, Clint sort of like course correcting. And it's just a strange way that movie franchise plays out over time. And so many movies in the late 80s and 90s were going to be the next Dirty Harry, and they ended up being another project. Gran Torino in 06 was rumored to be another Dirty Harry movie, but Clint turned it into, or it was always going to be this Gran Torino. But the rumor was, it's Harry Callahan and not this other character. But I spent some time on that one. I got some interviews. Tim Matheson is in there. He was great. He's one of the villains in Magnum Force. And
nice.
I think it should be coming out by the end of the year. They're in the middle of doing all the whole processing of it and whatnot, and they'll let me know when they're close. I imagine. So
I am.
Other than that, I've got some other ideas.
This.
Yeah, I've got some other
fantastic.
ideas. I've got one that I'm fishing around with right now, but it's pretty early in the stages. So maybe next time we'll talk about that one. Yeah.
Brilliant. Okay, do you know what's really shameful is I do a film podcast, but what this does is just expose all my blind spots, and I've never seen a single Dirty Harry movie.
Oh, you've got to.
Especially.
Yeah, right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. You have to.
I haven't seen them all, to be fair. I haven't seen them all, but the first two.
Really?
The first two are great.
The first two are great. The third one, The Enforcers, a little bit. Sudden Impact has his girlfriend at the time, whose name is escaping me right now. That was a big controversial thing. The Deadpool has Liam Neeson is in it, and it has Jim Carrey as a heavy metal rocker in a music video who dies under mysterious. It's very crazy. He's credited as James Carrey at the time, not even Jim Carrey.
Wow.
Wow. But that one's almost like a canon movie from the 80s. The first one is a classic. The first one's a masterpiece, and it's very set in its ways, much like Clint Eastwood would be in a lot of ways. But it's wonderful. It was a riff on the Zodiac Killer. Was the inspiration, one of the inspirations behind it. And so a lot of it has to do with that anxiety of the Bay Area at the time in the 70s or the late 60s when the Zodiac was killing people and nobody knew who he was. And so the first Dirty Harry is like, well, the cops can't figure this out in real life. Let's just have our character save the day and give audiences this catharsis that they're not getting, through the traditional police work at the time. So it stirred up a lot of controversy, but it's a classic. It's great.
Is that the only one that Don Siegel directed, or did he do any more?
That's the only one. He was. He wanted to. I think Magnum Force. I can't remember my details now, but at one point Magnum Force he was going to do, but he wound up doing Charlie Varick instead, which is a good movie. I mean, it's a great movie. Really, it's exciting. It's got Walter Matthau, kind of a caper movie, and it's a good one. But he ended up doing that instead of Magnum Force, and Ted Post did Magnum Force. And I can't remember where they worked together before, but Magnum Force is great. Magnum Force is really gnarly too. It's good stuff.
I only encountered Dirty Harry after working my way through the list of films in Cinema Speculation, Tarantino's book. Yes. He's going through all these quintessential new Hollywood films.
Yes.
So when you get through that list, Chris, then you've got a lot of golden films coming to you.
It's true. Yeah. Did you read that, Larry?
I did, and that's Rolling Thunder. After that, I'd heard about it before then, but that's one of the ones that he really, really pumped up, and obviously wrote a chapter on. But after I read his chapter on it, I had to go. I bought that one. I knew I was going to love it.
Nice.
And I did. It's fantastic. It's great.
Yeah, I need to work my way through those because again, I haven't seen most of them. Probably Taxi Driver is probably the only one I've seen. Yeah, so I definitely need to get on that.
That would be a great double feature if you wanted to have a bad time, a bad time to watch that and Rolling Thunder back to back. A good time, but a bad time.
Oh, sweet. Right? Okay,
awesome.
Because
I saw that on your letterbox as well that you recently watched Deliverance, which was another one I was introduced to via cinema
I've never
speculation.
Seen it. Yeah, I've never seen it.
A weird but awesome film. I don't really know how I feel about it, to be honest, but it's great.
Is it Burt Lancaster?
It's great.
Yeah.
No, it's Burt Reynolds.
Burt
Reynolds.
Oh, Burt Reynolds.
Burt Reynolds, yes.
Burt Reynolds,
right.
John Voight, Ronnie Cox, and Ned Beatty. And they're four city boys going out onto the river and get into some trouble. Yeah, and obviously the one scene that everybody knows, even if you haven't seen it, you know about that scene. But there's so much else to it. It's sort of been reduced over time as a joke. I hear banjo music, this and that. But you know, there's so much more there, and it's sort of like man divided into these four different sections, these four different characters, and all of us kind of aspire to be the Burt Reynolds character, who's kind of like the wannabe swashbuckler with like the higher ideas about manhood and masculinity, and then there's Ed, the one who is a little bit more sympathetic, smart, quick on his feet, but not really prepared. And then there's Drew, who's the Ronnie Cox character, and he's sort of like a youth pastor at a church. You know, he's just the nicest person ever. He's like your kindest version of yourself. And then there's poor Bobby, played by Ned Beatty, and he's the worst of us in a lot of ways. He's what you don't want to be, a lot of ways, and so it's just a fascinating division of one person into these four different characters, and it's so rich, and I love it. So great movie. Yeah,
I need to
dive
get
into those
on
70s movies.
Yeah, I need to. Maybe I should just start throwing them in the film club so that we can get to it. Otherwise, I don't know when I will.
I think that's a good idea, Chris. I'm up for that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, yeah, I guess we'll leave it there for now, Larry. Honestly, it's been such an absolute pleasure to meet.
Thank you so much.
And chat to you, man.
It's been wonderful talking to you guys. I love it. You know, I got a few friends in my life here that enjoy talking movies, but I don't ever get this sort of chance to kind of dive into all these different movies and talk back and forth with a couple of guys who really, really love them too. So it's been great. It's been great.
Thank you. I'm so pleased. And I would love to talk again, because I feel like movies are just an endless subject for all of us to expound on. So maybe at some point down the line, maybe when the next book comes out.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. That sounds like a great idea. I'd love to come back on.
Fantastic. All right. Well, I wish you all the best of luck with your writing going forward. I will certainly be reading. Thank you again. And that's it for now. I do highly encourage everyone to track down Larry Taylor's books. They are available most places. Also follow him on Letterboxd for some great movie thoughts and recommendations. As I've said, I'm a big fan, and if you love film, I feel confident you will become one too. Our music and editing is by Stefan Krieger. You can find his stuff at stefan-krieger.com. Luke, thank you again for joining me, sir.
Thank you.
I'll see you on the next one. Like, rate, subscribe, review, share this with your movie-loving friends or family, and then we will see you here next time to talk movies on the Phoenix Cinema Podcast. Bye for now.